The door slammed with a finality that echoed through the entire 7th Precinct like a gunshot in the night. Officer Vivian Hayes stood frozen in the hallway, the transfer orders crumpling in her fist as Captain Harlan's words still rang in her ears. "Inappropriate conduct with your partner," he'd snarled, his face twisted in disgust, as if the love she shared with Claire was some kind of disease that could infect the whole department. But what the captain didn't realize was that this so-called scandal was the least of his worries. Vivian had evidence, hard, irrefutable proof, that the very man who just ruined her career was neck-deep in a corruption ring involving protection money from the city's biggest drug lords. And now, with nothing left to lose, she was ready to burn it all down. It had started 6 months ago, on a rainy night patrol in Chicago's South Side. Vivian and Claire had been partners for over a year, their bond forged in the fires of dangerous calls and long shifts. Claire Ramirez, with her sharp wit and even sharper aim, had always been the calm to Vivian's storm. But that night, after a particularly brutal domestic dispute call, they had pulled over to the side of the road, hearts still racing. "You okay?" Claire had asked, her hand reaching out in the dim light of the dashboard. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the line between partners and something more blurred forever. The kiss was tentative at first, then urgent, filled with all the unspoken feelings they'd both been burying under layers of professional duty. "We can't," Vivian had whispered, pulling back, her conservative upbringing in a small Iowa town flashing warnings in her mind. Her parents had barely accepted her move to the big city to become a cop. If they knew about this, about her being with a woman, it would shatter them. But Claire's smile, soft and understanding, had melted the resistance. "We can keep it quiet," she'd said. "For now." From then on, their relationship became a carefully guarded secret. Stolen moments in Claire's apartment after shifts, whispered promises during roll call, and the occasional risk of a touch that lingered too long. Vivian felt alive for the first time, the inner conflict between her duty and her heart a constant hum in the background. But the precinct was a pressure cooker of machismo and old-school values, where any hint of weakness, or difference, was exploited. Then came the night that changed everything. During a routine evidence room check, Vivian stumbled upon a folder that didn't belong. It was labeled innocently enough, but inside were bank statements, photos of meetings with known gang members, and payments traced back to Captain Harlan and 2 other senior officers. The corruption went deep. Officers turning a blind eye to shipments, taking cuts to protect dealers. Vivian's stomach turned. This was her department, her brothers and sisters in blue, but it was rotten to the core. She'd confronted Claire first, in the safety of their hidden world. "We have to do something," Vivian had said, her voice trembling with the weight of the discovery. Claire's eyes had widened in fear. "Viv, if we blow this whistle, they'll destroy us. Especially now that they suspect us." But Vivian couldn't let it go. The moral dilemma tore at her. Loyalty to the badge versus loyalty to what was right. That same evening, Vivian's phone buzzed with a call from her mother back in Iowa. "Honey, your father and I are worried. We hear things about Chicago, dangerous people, strange influences. When are you going to settle down with a good man?" The words landed like punches. Vivian forced a laugh, but inside, the guilt twisted tighter. How could she explain that the woman she loved made her stronger than any man ever could? She hung up, promising to visit soon, knowing the visit would only bring more pressure, more questions she couldn't answer without breaking their hearts. The next morning, the rumors started. A desk sergeant smirked as Vivian walked past. "Heard you and Ramirez got real close on those late shifts." Vivian kept her face neutral, but her pulse raced. She knew the clock was ticking. If she didn't act fast, the corruption file would disappear, and so would any chance at justice. Claire met her in the locker room, eyes darting to make sure they were alone. "Vivian, please. Think about us. Think about your family." But Vivian had already made her copy of the evidence. She slipped the USB drive into her pocket and kissed Claire quickly on the cheek. "I am thinking about us. About what kind of world we want to protect." By afternoon, Captain Harlan had summoned her. The transfer was immediate, desk duty in a rural substation 2 hours outside the city. No hearing, no explanation beyond the inappropriate relationship label. As Vivian cleared her locker, Claire watched from the doorway, tears she refused to let fall. "This isn't over," Vivian whispered. But deep down, she wondered if exposing the truth would cost her the only person who truly understood her pain. The drive home to her small apartment felt endless, the weight of every choice pressing down. Family expectations, societal stares, the badge she'd sworn to uphold. It all collided in her chest until she could barely breathe. Yet in the quiet of her kitchen, staring at the USB drive on the table, Vivian knew one thing for certain. Silence was no longer an option. Claire's words hung heavy in the air, but Vivian knew deep down that silence would eat her alive. She spent the first night of her transfer alone, replaying the confrontation with Harlan over and over. He hadn't even looked her in the eye when he signed the papers, just muttered something about maintaining standards. Standards. The word tasted like ash. These were the same standards that let dealers flood neighborhoods while officers pocketed envelopes under the table. Vivian paced her living room, the city lights of Chicago flickering through the blinds like distant accusations. The next morning, she drove to the rural substation, a sleepy building surrounded by cornfields that felt like exile. Her new captain, an older man named Ruiz who seemed more interested in paperwork than street work, barely glanced up. "You'll handle reports here. Keep your head down." Vivian nodded, but her mind was already back at the precinct. She had emailed an anonymous tip to Internal Affairs the night before, attaching just enough of the files to spark an investigation without revealing her name yet. The risk was enormous. If they traced it back, not only would her career end, but Claire's would too. That evening her phone rang. It was Claire. "They pulled me into Harlan's office today. Asked if anything was going on between us. I denied it, but Viv, they know. Someone talked." Vivian's heart sank. Betrayal from within their own circle. She thought of Sergeant Mills, the one who'd always made snide comments about girls who play for the other team. Had he seen them that one time in the parking garage? "I won't let them drag you down," Vivian said firmly. But Claire's voice cracked. "It's not just the job. My family's in this city. My little brother looks up to me. If this blows up, what do I tell him?" The call ended with promises to meet secretly, but Vivian felt the first real fracture in their bond. Back home on her day off, Vivian dialed her parents. Her mother answered on the second ring. "Sweetheart, we got your message about the transfer. Is everything okay? Your father thinks maybe it's time you come home, find a nice steady job here." Vivian swallowed hard. "Mom, I'm fine. It's just politics at work." The lie burned. She could picture her father's disapproving frown, the way he'd shake his head and mutter about big city nonsense. They'd never understood her drive to wear the badge, and they certainly wouldn't understand Claire. "We love you, Vivian. We just want what's best. A family of your own someday." The words echoed long after she hung up, stirring the old guilt. Was she selfish for choosing this life, this love? Meanwhile, the corruption evidence weighed on her like lead. She spent hours in her apartment cross-referencing dates, names, and bank records. Harlan wasn't the only one. Detective Kowalski and Lieutenant Graves were in deep, skimming thousands monthly. Vivian's hands shook as she compiled a second, more detailed file. Every page felt like another nail in the coffin of her old life. She met Claire at a quiet diner on the edge of town the following weekend, both of them in civilian clothes, baseball caps low. "I sent more to IA," Vivian admitted. Claire's face paled. "You did what?" "Without telling me." The argument escalated quickly in the parking lot afterward. "You think you're the hero here, but you're risking everything we have," Claire shouted, tears streaming. Vivian stood her ground, voice steady despite the storm inside. "If we don't stop this, who will? The same system that punishes us for loving each other while letting criminals walk free." Claire drove away without another word, leaving Vivian standing alone under the neon sign. The drive back was a blur of doubt. Had she pushed too far? The inner conflict raged, love versus justice, self-preservation versus the greater good. By the time she reached her apartment, Vivian collapsed onto the couch, exhausted but resolute. The price was climbing higher every day. Yet turning back now would mean betraying not just the badge, but herself. The anonymous tip had clearly rattled the precinct. Vivian learned through a mutual friend that IA had started asking quiet questions. Harlan was on edge, snapping at everyone. But the real blow came when Sergeant Mills cornered her during a supply run to the main station. Heard you're out in the sticks now, Hayes. Shame about you and Ramirez. Guess some secrets don't stay buried. His smirk told her everything. He was the one who'd whispered to Harlan. Vivian kept her cool, but inside rage boiled. This was the same man who'd taken payoffs. She'd seen his name on the ledgers. That night, Claire showed up unannounced at Vivian's door, eyes red from crying. Mills threatened me today. Said if I didn't distance myself, he'd make sure we both lose our pensions. They sat on the couch, the tension thick. Vivian reached for her hand, but Claire pulled away. I love you, Viv. But I can't lose everything. My brother's college fund, my mom's health bills, it's all tied to this job. The words cut deep, exposing the raw inequality in their sacrifices. Vivian's family was distant and judgmental. But Claire's was intertwined with every paycheck. Then help me finish this, Vivian pleaded. We exposed them together. IA needs one more push. Claire hesitated, then nodded slowly. They spent the next hours reviewing the files on Vivian's laptop. Every new connection they uncovered, Graves funneling money through fake charities, Kowalski tipping off dealers before raids, strengthened Vivian's resolve. But the personal cost mounted. A call from her father came the next day. Your mother saw something on social media about officers being investigated in Chicago. Tell me you're not involved in any of that mess. Vivian lied again, the deception weighing heavier than ever. No, Dad. Just a transfer. Hanging up, she stared at the photo on her wall, of her in uniform at academy graduation, parents beaming beside her. How far had she strayed from that proud girl? The betrayal deepened when Vivian received an anonymous email warning her to back off or face personal consequences. Attached was a blurry photo of her and Claire kissing in the park months earlier. Someone close was watching. She confronted Claire at their next secret meeting. Did you tell anyone? Claire's denial was quick, but doubt lingered in Vivian's mind for the first time. The argument left them both drained, Claire storming out with, maybe this was a mistake. Alone again, Vivian cried for the first time in years, the emotional toll cracking her armor. Yet the next morning, she drove to a payphone and called the IA hotline directly, giving her name and offering to testify. The decision was made. There was no turning back. As weeks passed, the investigation gained momentum. Vivian testified in a closed room, detailing every transaction, every cover-up. Harlan was suspended pending review, but the precinct turned on her like a pack. Old friends stopped returning calls. Whispers followed her even in the rural substation. And Claire grew distant, canceling meetings with excuses about overtime. Vivian's inner conflict peaked one sleepless night. Was justice worth losing the woman she loved? The answer came in the quiet dawn. Yes. Because without truth, their love was built on the same rotten foundation as the department. The suspensions hit the news quietly at first, then exploded. Chicago PD officers suspended in bribery probe. Vivian read the headline in her substation break room. A grim satisfaction mixing with dread. Harlan had been formally charged, along with Graves and Kowalski. But victory felt hollow when Claire's text came through. We need to talk. In person. They met at the same diner, but the air was different this time, colder. IA interviewed me yesterday, Claire said flatly. They know about us. I had to confirm the relationship to protect myself from perjury charges. Vivian felt the floor drop. You told them everything? Claire's eyes flashed with anger and fear. What choice did I have? You started this fire, Viv. Now we're both burning. The confrontation spilled into the parking lot. Voices rising under the streetlights. I did it for us, for every officer who actually wants to serve. Vivian shouted. Claire laughed bitterly. Serve? You served yourself. My family is asking questions now. My brother overheard the rumors at school. Do you know what that feels like? The words struck like blows. Vivian's own family had gone silent after the news broke. Her mother's last call had ended in tears and a plea to come home and fix this. The pressure from all sides crushed her chest. That weekend, Vivian drove to Iowa despite everything. Her parents met her at the door with forced smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "We saw the papers," her father said over dinner. "Is it true? About you and another woman?" The question hung like a guillotine. Vivian nodded, tears welling. "Her name is Claire. And I love her." Her mother's gasp was audible. "We raised you better. This isn't you." The weekend became a marathon of arguments, prayers, and ultimatums. "Give up this job, this lifestyle," her father urged. "Start over here." Vivian left Sunday night with her heart in pieces, but strangely clearer. Their rejection hurt. Yet it freed her from the last illusion that she could ever fit their mold. Back in Chicago, the final betrayal came from an unexpected source. Detective Kowalski, facing charges, had cut a deal and named Claire as someone who'd known about the files but stayed quiet. It was a lie, but enough to put Claire under investigation too. Vivian rushed to Claire's apartment only to find her packing. "They're transferring me to worse station. Because of you." The door closed in Vivian's face. Alone on the sidewalk, Vivian realized the price. The woman she loved now saw her as the enemy. The moral dilemma that had haunted her for months crystallized into cold reality. Justice had a face, and it was the pain in Claire's eyes. Yet Vivian pressed on. She met with the lead IA investigator one last time, handing over every scrap of evidence. "This ends now," she said. The investigator nodded. "You're a brave woman, Hayes. Not many would pay what you're paying." Walking out into the rain, Vivian felt the weight lift slightly. The system she'd sworn to protect was cracking, but so was her life. The grand jury indictments dropped like bombshells. Captain Harlan, Detective Kowalski, Lieutenant Graves, arrested in coordinated raids that made national headlines. Vivian watched the footage from her apartment. A quiet triumph warring with the emptiness inside. The precinct was in chaos. Half the officers were under scrutiny, the other half pointing fingers. Her name stayed out of the public eye for now, but inside the department, everyone knew. The woman who'd exposed it all. Claire's silence stretched into weeks. Vivian tried calling, texting, even showing up at her new substation, but each attempt ended in rejection. "You chose the truth over us," Claire had said in their last conversation. "I can't forgive that yet." The words replayed endlessly in Vivian's mind during long shifts filing reports that felt meaningless now. Family pressure compounded it. Her mother sent a letter begging her to resign and come home to heal. Vivian read it once, then burned it in the sink. The awakening was painful but undeniable. She could no longer live for anyone else's approval. Then came the hearing. Vivian sat in the witness box, facing a room full of lawyers and the very men she'd once called colleagues. Harlan glared from the defense table as she recounted every detail. The folder, the payoffs, the cover-ups. Cross-examination was brutal. "Isn't it true your relationship with Officer Ramirez clouded your judgment?" The defense attorney sneered. Vivian met his eyes steadily. "My relationship gave me the courage to see what others ignored." The room murmured. When she stepped down, legs shaking, she felt lighter than she had in months. But the personal wreckage followed her home. That night, a knock at the door revealed Claire standing there, rain-soaked and exhausted. "They cleared me of any wrongdoing," she said quietly. "But the damage is done." They talked for hours, about the betrayals, the fear, the love that still lingered beneath the anger. Vivian poured out every doubt, every tear she'd held back. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just couldn't live with the lies anymore." Claire listened, then reached for her hand. "I know. But loving you cost me more than I was ready for." They didn't reconcile fully, but the embrace they shared before Claire left felt like the first honest moment in months. The next day, Vivian received official notice. She could return to active duty at the 7th Precinct, now under new leadership. The offer felt hollow. Too many ghosts lingered in those halls. She declined, opting instead for a quiet resignation and a fresh start in community outreach. The decision brought peace, but also a profound sense of loss. The woman who'd worn the badge with pride was gone, replaced by someone who understood the true cost of integrity. Months later, Chicago's streets felt different, cleaner somehow, though Vivian knew the fight was never truly over. She worked now as a crisis counselor at a youth center on the South Side. helping kids navigate the same pressures that had once nearly broken her. Claire had transferred to a suburban department, their paths crossing only in occasional texts that carried cautious warmth. The romantic spark hadn't died, but it had transformed into something quieter, more careful. Vivian missed the old fire, yet she no longer questioned whether the sacrifice had been worth it. Her family still struggled. Her mother called weekly now, the conversation stiff but improving. "We're trying to understand," she'd say. Vivian answered honestly each time. "I understand myself better than I ever did." The societal prejudice lingered in sideways glances and whispered comments at the center, but Vivian faced them with a strength born from fire. The moral dilemmas that once tormented her nights had resolved into clarity. She had chosen truth, and in doing so, had saved more lives than any badge alone could have. One crisp autumn evening, Vivian sat on a park bench where she and Claire had once shared their first real date. The sun dipped low, painting the trees gold. Her phone buzzed with a message from Claire. "Heard the new captain cleaned house. Proud of you." Vivian smiled, typing back a simple heart. The road ahead remained uncertain. Rebuilding trust, healing old wounds, forging a life beyond the uniform. But for the first time, she walked it without regret. In the end, was Vivian's choice to expose the corruption the right one, even if it cost her the love of her life and her career? Or should she have chosen silence to protect what mattered most?